The Nintendo Switch needs a win. After Pokemon being a broken mess, Alan Wake Remastered being a joke of a port, and Sonic Frontiers barely being playable, it was looking like third party, and in Game Freak's case, first party studios had gotten all they could out of the Nintendo Switch. Now we know these games were just poorly optimized and it wasn't the Switch hardware's fault, but it seemed like devs just couldn't get it right after 6 years. And then Square Enix showed up. Now Final Fantasy VII isn't a miracle port because it is a PSP game, but it looks amazing and really plays to the Switch's strength, which to me is this beautiful OLED screen in handheld mode. Hello world and all who inhabit it, it is I, the Great Saiyaran, and in 2023, I decided to become a Final Fantasy fanboy. We have major titles coming with Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, two titles I'm really looking forward to. I actually played through Final Fantasy VII Remake for the first time this year with the PS5 version and absolutely loved it. I chased down the story, the movies, and really dived into the series, and when we heard Crisis Core was getting a remaster remake, I got very excited since I heard it was a great game with a great story. Square Enix has become one of my favorite studios in gaming, with the Nier Automata port coming out earlier this year and looking amazing on Switch. So I have faith that Crisis Core Reunion will be great on the Switch as well. It isn't at 60 frames per second and is limited to 720p, but I really think this game is worth a pickup on Switch, maybe even over the PS5, Xbox, and PC versions of this game. Let me explain why. The original Crisis Core was released September 13th of 2007 exclusively for the PSP. It was a prequel set years before the events of Final Fantasy VII. The story follows Zack Fair, and he's often with Sephiroth when he was the hero we heard he was in Final Fantasy VII. It's jarring to see this side of Sephiroth, but aside from getting his backstory, we see more into Zack Fair, who actually plays a major part in Final Fantasy VII Remake. He even shows up at the end of the game, which still confuses long-standing fans. It is a remake after all. I won't spoil too much of the story because a lot of people may have played the iconic Final Fantasy VII, but not Crisis Core because it was stuck on the PSP until recently. Just know that if you're at all remotely interested in the Final Fantasy VII storyline, this game will give you more insight into that world. Normally, I'd say you don't have to play pre-existing games to get into a series, but honestly, you absolutely need to play Final Fantasy VII before Crisis Core. It is a prequel, so you technically can go straight into it first, but some of the character interactions and cutscenes just won't hit the same. I want the best for you, so go play Final Fantasy VII Remake or download the mobile version on your app store. And while you're at it, try Final Fantasy VII The First Soldier before they take it offline January 13th. It's a great game that could have done better if it was on more than just mobile, and I usually champion the mobile scene. Anyway, this franchise has a lot of history, and I'm quickly becoming a big fan. Crisis Core Reunion is a part of a larger project Square Enix announced where they're remaking all the different parts of Final Fantasy VII's story, with the next major installment, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, being slated for winter 2023. Final Fantasy XVI is the next major Final Fantasy game, so we probably won't hear about Rebirth until after 16's release. Crisis Core follows the new style of combat we've seen with Final Fantasy VII Remake while keeping its OG roots, like with the DMV system. This gimmick is a slot reel that gives you random boosts and power-ups depending on what numbers or images it lands on. For instance, getting 777s will give you invincibility, while 555s nullify physical damage taken. Getting matching images of characters you met along your journey can activate your limit break, which initiates an in-battle cutscene and either does damage to the energy or gives you some sort of boost.
Prove your honor to me. I got it.
This is also how summons work, one of the reoccurring focuses of Final Fantasy combat across all games. The summons cutscenes look absolutely amazing, and it makes landing on them feel that much more enjoyable aside from the big damage they do. There's also vibration and haptic feedback, so you can really feel when Bahamut charges up that Mega Flare. The cutscenes in general look pretty, and it's when you get to the more pre-rendered cinematics that you remember that this is a PSP game. They took these cutscenes straight from the PSP and just tried to upscale them a bit for modern resolutions. I'm actually okay with this because they look fine on my OLED screen, and the in-battle cutscenes were remade for this version, so they offset the awkward cinematic ones. They either didn't have the time or didn't have the budget to completely redo every single cutscene, but that's fine for a $50 release, and I can overlook that. They also redid all the voice acting to match the current voice actors of Final Fantasy VII Remake, but also kept the entire story the same. It's essentially a one-for-one when it comes to dialogue and storytelling.
I'm Zack. Pleasure to meet you.
Zack, aren't you on assignment?
Same objective. Need some help here?
I actually never played the OG Crisis Core when it was released, so I'm really glad that I can play this game just in a new way. If you didn't know, the PSP didn't have dual analog sticks and only had 2 shoulder buttons as opposed to the 4 that we're used to now. They made it work for what it was, but with Crisis Core's updated button layout, everything just feels smoother. General combat is still dated as it's basically just mashing your attack button, which for me is why. Zack just does the basic combo, but adding materia into the mix and some of the flashy moves like Thunder or Blizzard Blade keeps the combat fresh enough. I was really bummed when I grinded missions to unlock Thunder Blade after using Blizzard Blade for the first few hours of the game and assumed it'd be a flashier and different attack, but was actually just the same movement with different elemental damage and on-screen effects. Combat isn't as updated as some people would want it, but again, it's a PSP game and it isn't necessarily a remake, but they did do more work to it than your normal remaster. It sits somewhere in the middle. Compared to the beefier Xbox, PC, and PS5 versions of this game, you're not missing much when it comes to the Switch. It sits comfortably at 30 FPS with a few drops, but I've only been able to notice 3 or 4 big ones over the last few days of playing, and that's pretty par for the course with Switch games. I haven't noticed any stutters, and the graphics look great on Switch. In handheld mode, this game looks amazing and feels like it was specifically made for a handheld because technically it was. Once you dock it, even on my 24-inch 1080p monitor, you can tell this game is at a lower resolution. If you get this on the PS5, then of course you begin this at 4K, but that doesn't really add that much more in terms of actual graphical fidelity. It looks like a remastered PSP game on the PS5, but on the Switch it looks like a remade PSP game specifically made for the Switch. I think if you're a resolution and frame rate snob like I am, then you may want to get this on PS5 or even PC, but the trades you make for portability are worth a Switch pickup to me. I played Final Fantasy VII Remake on my PS5 at my gaming station and didn't care for the long sessions it'd take to finish the JRPG. Crisis Core is about half as long, but the freedom to be on my comfortable couch next to my wife while I play is worth the half frame rate and lower resolution. But with the size of the Switch screen, it doesn't even look bad. I'm glad I got this game on Switch and can experience it the way I have. Playing Crisis Core has me looking forward to Rebirth, and I don't want to look over Final Fantasy 16 either. Square Enix is cooking right now, and though every release won't come to the Switch, I'm really excited for the ones that will. I usually don't rate games with numbers, but instead give them a recommend, don't recommend, or wait for a sale, and with this game I can comfortably recommend to anyone who's looking to get into Final Fantasy, specifically 7 with all the hype around it, and honestly JRPGs in general. If you don't want to waste time on clunky menus and level up systems or turn-based combat, then give Crisis Core on Switch a try, or Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS4, 5, and PC. Also try a recent video where I looked at the top 10 rated Nintendo Switch exclusives of 2022 and used the same rating scale to recommend, don't recommend, and advise waiting for a sale with all of them. Also be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.